Wow, wow, wow. It's great to be back. Garo, thank you. Thank you for inviting me to stay in your home. And thank you, Haig, for taking me on this trip. It was the trip of a lifetime. Thank you. I've always felt connected to my Armenian heritage. My Armenian cousins drove down from Boston. They're here tonight. You know, but I really didn't understand how much of my upbringing was culturally Armenian until we got there. The country felt like a second home to me, and everyone felt like family. I just don't know any other way to say it, but as you witnessed, there were magical things that kept happening to me there. And Haig, I mean, I've actually met some of your cousins. Michael Aram is your cousin. I think there might be more cousins in the room, maybe. But it just feels like we're all related in some way when I'm here with you all and when I'm in Armenia. And Haig, you're like my brother. I mean, Sojuk Sundays at the Carousel in Glendale. You're all invited. I just can't thank Garo, Haig, I can't thank you enough. I also want to thank you for bringing me to the COAF Center in Debed and for giving me the opportunity to roll up my sleeves and see firsthand the difference the COAF is making there with the children and the parents in these rural areas. But, I mean, Haig, you remember when we were leaving, and Meher, when we were leaving the Debed Center in Lori, I'll just tell this one story. You know, it was raining, and the only way I can describe it is biblical. And we were trying to stay ahead of flooding that was affecting the entire region. And so we had this talk, this huddle about whether or not we should head straight back to Yerevan so we wouldn't get caught in the storm. Except for whatever reason, I wound up voting against it because I really, really wanted to see the monastery at Sanahin, which is one of the oldest in the country. Yeah, people are clapping because they've been there. It's incredible. You know, I just don't think I fully understood the severity of the rainstorm. So we had our driver, Raj, drive us through the monsoon to the top of the mountain. And I mean, we opened the van door and it was raining sideways in sheets, just pouring violently. So we just covered our heads and ran into the old stone ruins where we tried the best we could to shake off. And I eventually turned this corner and I found this chamber that had an icon of the Virgin Mary holding baby Jesus, which is obviously pretty common in every church, which I've seen a million times, but this one was unique. The icon was in the same exact pose of one of the only pictures I have of my great-grandmother, Terviz, holding my grandmother, Sararpi. I mean, if you took 5 minutes directing them into that pose, you maybe wouldn't have gotten that shot. But there it was right in front of me, almost identical. And my head started swimming. And I knelt down and I just stared at it. You know, that picture on the right, that was taken in Constantinople right before my great-grandmother got on the boat with my infant grandmother to come to America. A mother with her child without a father. As many of you know who know my story, my great-grandmother miraculously escaped the massacre in Carpet. While in the process, she was beaten and shot by the Turks, all while losing her husband and 9 children, along with everyone she'd ever known. And she survived the murder of her family and friends, only to then be put in a relocation camp after the war, where she was impregnated by a German officer who was stationed there, who subsequently then returned to Germany, leaving her on her own to give birth to her 10th child, his child, my grandmother. And I've sat awake at night many times asking myself why anyone, why she would want to go on after all of that. And the answer came to me. It was an Armenian word that I can remember my mother saying that she heard her grandmother Terviz used when referring to her half-German, half-Armenian child born in that camp. The word is Shrestag, angel. My great-grandmother saw that baby as an angel sent to her to help her through the darkest moment any human being could possibly suffer through. And there for me was the Rosetta Stone in terms of spirituality, and also the importance of the story of the Virgin Mary, because I imagine at that time there were a lot of children being born without fathers during that war. Children like my grandmother, who had nothing to do with the battle between good and evil waging on in the world. But despite those circumstances, my great-grandmother saw the birth of my grandmother as a gift from God, sent to help her survive, to give her the purpose to wake up every day and just live on, to shield the baby from the evil in the world she'd witnessed, because that baby had nothing at all to do with any of it. And furthermore, it made it clear to me that to my great-grandmother, the atrocities of the genocide weren't caused by a malevolent, punishing God. It was caused by humans. And she never stopped praying to her God to help her get out of it. And that icon in Sanahin reminded me that even when life is at its absolute darkest point, where there's no light at all, when there's nothing left to do but simply survive, life will send you something to help you get to that next day. Because my great-grandmother didn't give up, and because she remained faithful, I get to stand up here and I get to tell her story. And because of that, she and my grandmother get to live on. The symbol of Armenia, as I came to find, was the 8-pointed sun of eternity, and it's carved into stone absolutely everywhere you look throughout the country. Because of the generosity of Garo, Haig, and COAF, I now truly understand what eternity means when you're Armenian. Because they survived, our culture will never die. Thank you, Garo. Thank you, Haig.